I felt like I wasn't ready to be this money-minded person. I still kind of had a block that was the kind of person I didn't want to be, that I had these idealistic views about how I wanted to run a business without being greedy and money motivated. And I remember one of the most meaningful things that he said was, not only imagine how much money that you could be making with the help of this course, but how much money have you wasted or have you not saved? And that hit me really hard because I work very hard. I'm very passionate, and I've made quite a bit of money, and I had absolutely nothing to show for it. Some of the most tangible results for me has definitely been just seeing my accounts grow, where before this course, I was very month to month. I mean, I never had $500 or $1,000 in my account, in my savings. After rent was paid, it was back down to about 500 or 1,000. And just a few months, after the course, I was already seeing 10, 15, it got up to 20,000 in my account. I also opened a new business right at the beginning of this course. And the fact that I've been able to invest into that while continuing to see my savings grow is just something that absolutely never would have happened without this course.
This episode is for any tattoo artists out there that have struggled to save money, to accumulate savings and build financial stability. I have an interview with Nic Duque. He used to never have $1,000 to his name. He used to just live the broke pirate life for most of his career. And through putting some organizational systems in place, through working on his mindset, he was able to own 3 shops. He's actually, I think, selling one of those shops now. He's living this wild, abundant dream life that he never thought possible. And so I wanted to record his story a year and a half after doing the Artful Dollar program. For anyone that's curious and wants to learn more about that program, this is also a great episode to show you what's really possible. Now, you can do this stuff on your own, but most big accomplishments in life are things that we tend to want to get some help with. So for anyone that is interested, there's some more information in the captions. But either way, I wanted to show you what's possible for you and any tattooer. If he can do it, you certainly can. So here's an interview a year and a half after going through the Artful Dollar program with Nic Duque. Nic, you're back a year. Has it been a year since you did the Artful Dollar?
Yeah, it's been a year and 4 months. I think I finished October 2023.
Okay. And a lot has changed since then. So I just thought it'd be cool to catch up and talk about it. I think a lot of people have no idea what it is. And, I have all these, you left a testimonial a year ago, but I thought it'd be cool to have a conversation about what is this process that people go through? What does it actually look like? And talk about some of the results. So it just, if someone on the street or another tattoo artist were to just ask you like, hey, what is the Artful Dollar? What is that about? What would you like pretend I'm just someone coming in and you're like, oh yeah, it's like this. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I would tell them it's like an all-encompassing financial strategy that also incorporates a lot of mindset. The classes are extremely helpful, having accountability. It's definitely something I've never done before, thinking about what a financial course could be. Of course, it does appeal to tattooers, which is huge. It just has a lot of ways to break through to people or what might appeal to you, because when you talk about finances, business, the industry, tattooing, life, there's just so much there that's all encompassing, but that's kind of what the industry needs right now. And I see happening more, but you can know and still not do it. And a lot of people have that issue. I know I should post more. I know I should be better about my money, but like, why don't you?
How did it get you to actually do it? Because I think that's a big thing, is like a financial course sounds boring. What caused you to actually put the systems and structures and look at the fucking spreadsheets? Like, how did that work for you? Why was it so effective?
I think the commitment, at first I was resilient to it and
resistant.
Yeah. A friend of mine, an artist, Ashley, had taken the course and was telling me about it, as I've told you. But for those who don't know, I had a friend going through the course in the beginning and telling me about it. And like a lot of people, probably a lot of tattooers, oh, that's just not for me. I'm like, okay, that's cool. You're into that. Like, I'll figure my shit out. I'll do my taxes, whatever. And she kept bringing it up. And then she let me sit in on one of the videos or kind of peek at it. And it was one on Buddhism and money. And actually kind of sitting down and seeing what the material was. Because before I just didn't know. You imagine, I don't know, some lame accountant talking about shit that's boring, and to see how you were doing it in the format, what you were talking about because I have a Buddhist background, and that was something that made it hard for me to feel like I was being greedy. How do I run a business? And
I think that lesson I actually brought in a Buddhist monk.
Yeah.
That guy, I can't remember his name now, but yeah, he was an ex-Buddhist monk, and he came in and led a lesson. So I do bring in guest speakers and stuff like that as well. Obviously, sharing from my own spiritual practices. But do you think if someone is like not into the whole spiritual side of it, do you think it's still like a program that would work for them?
Absolutely, because there's everyone's kind of different. So what's going to attract you or what's going to work for you is definitely different for anyone. I mean, that was what attracted me to even give it a try. And then talking to Andreas, one of the things he said to me, I remember that kind of stuck with me, was not just imagine how much money you could be making or saving through this program, but how much money have you been losing? And that was really one of the most practical things, that made me want to initiate in this program, because like a lot of tattooers, I was making 80,000, 100,000 a year just tattooing my ass off, and, had $1,000 in my bank account at the beginning of every month or less. So where was that money going? Right now after the course, I'm making probably 100 grand, 120,000 tattooing, but I've got tens of thousands, in the bank and the savings and extra businesses now. So
did you own a shop?
I can't say
when we first started working together. Did you own a shop at that time?
I owned one shop. I had my first shop here, Utopia, for about 2 years. When I first started the course, I was taking on a second shop that I opened, and unexpectedly the year after got the opportunity to take on a third shop, which was a huge opportunity. It was kind of not the right time, but I had the savings, I had the credit, and I was able to make that move. So I've got 3 shops I've been running well for now, and one I'm going to sell for cheap to my artist friends so that they can help thrive and try to go through the process and see how that works for them. So I've got 3 shops right now, and about to be back to 2.
So let's go back to like, what was it like before you did this program? What was going on? You said you'd had $1,000 in savings. Was that kind of where you were at?
Yeah, I mean, at best, it was just like starting over every month, so that's so like just stressful. And the amount of time.
How long were you tattooing for?
I've been tattooing 17 years now. So about 13, 14 years when I opened the shop.
Okay, so like you were tattooing for about 15-ish, 16 years at the time, and you only had $1,000 to show for all that
always
time
at best.
Yeah.
And so anything coming up, any extra expense, anyone leaving, it took so much energy.
And if someone were to ask you, like, just at that time, if you go back in time, if someone were to say, describe what's money, just what is money, or how do you describe your relationship with money? What would you have said at the time?
I probably just would have a lot of distance between me and money, not a lot of familiarity. In general, just distaste too, just not used to it, not used to how to make it work for you. And so that I know a lot of that negative mindset a lot of people come into it with, just not knowing, looking at it more like an enemy than an ally. And that's huge difference, thinking I don't even want to have too much money because I thought it was too much trouble. I thought it was evil. I just didn't know because I never had money. So what do you do?
Right.
And going through the course, everything that you had taught, the other coaches, the teachers, the additional lessons, it totally changed my mindset. And like you said, wealth is freedom, and when you look at it, the difference between looking at money and wealth as evil and greedy compared to looking at it as freedom, to do what you want out of life and also to help others. I do numerous fundraisers, and that feeds my soul, and that's part of that difference in my change with money energy. Now, I'm making it, I'm saving it, I'm sharing it, it's flowing, it's abundant, it's working for me, I'm not scared, I'm not restricted, I'm not thinking small.
Was there a moment where you're like, oh wow, this is really working for me? Because I'm sure in the beginning there was some fear or skepticism, but was there like a turning point for you?
I would say there was like a few noticeable points in different ways. Like in the beginning, the practical side, the numbers, the spreadsheets, like for the first time saying, this is my monthly expenses, this is what I need in the bank, this is what I want to put in the Waterfall system, was just really comforting, encouraging, kind of gave me the confidence right away to see results. And I did, because then right away, okay, I would see the money I had, the savings, my plans going through. That was huge, the help you guys do with the accountability to actually sit there and say, why don't you do this right now?
If you didn't have the accountability, if you just had the plan, but you didn't have the accountability, do you think you would have been able to do it?
I know, and that was something I loved about the course that I wouldn't have expected. I was a high school dropout, like self-learner, screw the system always, and I was really shocked with how much I loved the structure of the course, like I was taking a class, and definitely that accountability, that paying, you're paying the money, you want to get something out of it. Makes sense. Having the times, I didn't want to miss a time. I'm paying for these classes. I'm trying to better my future. I'm going to show up. I'm going to listen. I'm going to follow through. Yeah, it was massive. No, if I had just had like a course with some emails and spreadsheets, I wouldn't have done anything. You guys were huge, and it feel like I had personal allies. You guys would reach out and push me. And so that from the beginning, I could tell the difference, and, really seeing how much it's going to pay off. It kind of depends on what you're looking for out of it. But I'll tell you that very soon after, and then we weren't communicating all the time, and I was kind of left on my own to work with these tools that I had. I would say that was like the next breakthrough that happened, was really my mental state. I mean, it is massively changed from when you have so much on your plate and you're stressed, and that fogs your way of thinking and your creativity, compared to feeling like I have the tools, I have the right idea, I'm prioritizing things differently, I'm doing everything I can in a day and feeling confident about it and feeling like I can handle everything else. It's not looming, it's not anxiety. And that just changes everything to me, because, even if I'm getting bills paid, I'm working my ass off and I'm depressed and I'm tired and I'm showing up, but I'm not doing anything in life I enjoy, of course, what's the point? So really like feeling the effects of, I've got my finances practically under control. I've got my mindset better than ever. I feel positive about life and what I'm doing. And that came a lot from the courses, the guided meditation, the books that you guys suggested that really helped change my life.
How would you describe, I feel like the word mindset is like a very amorphous word. Like I could tell people like, we work on your mindset, and they're like, okay, right, what the hell does that mean? How would you describe, if someone's like, what do you mean mindset, or what do you mean mindset classes? I don't know. How would you describe that?
Sure. Good question. And of course, a lot of artists struggle with different mental dispositions. None of us artists were really normal, where we have sensitivities and different attention spans and depression and anxieties that we already have struggled dealing with. And then, of course, a lot of us weren't taught about the finances and the business. And so that adds to it. So I guess when I think mindset, the difference between having a stress mindset or having a clarity mindset, the difference between being stressed, feeling that obligation, kind of the oppressiveness, I have so much to do, the self-doubt. Of course, you can't do anything when you've got self-doubt, and the imposter syndrome term that's also going around a lot, which, folks just not having enough experience. I think that's like the mindset that I had before. And, I come into work early and I don't know where to start. I got to drop emails. I got to do finances. I got to get ready for my piece. And that's just crazy. The stress, you feel it in your body, you feel it in your mind. And then the difference to be able to come into work and just know that you can handle everything, know that it's going to be all right. And the way you interact with other people, the way you treat yourself, not having that anxiety and doubt, and actually going home and saying, damn, I did good today. You know what I mean? That never happened the first year I had a business. I never said, oh, okay, I did enough and I'm going to do more tomorrow. And that's a mindset change.
So apparently 88% of listeners have not left a review or subscribed. And I'm going to get right back to the podcast in just a second. But if you have found this episode helpful and you think that other people would benefit from listening, then all I ask in return is please just leave a quick review and subscribe. It'll take just 1 minute and it might help other tattooers and other artists find this podcast and help them out. So please, it would mean the world to me and it might actually make a difference for someone else. Thanks. In the mindset calls, every Wednesday, we have these mindset calls. We talk about limiting beliefs. We identify what they are. Normally, we go about our lives. We're not like, oh, I see, I have a limiting belief around this thing. We just do what we do, and we're operating with this belief system in the background. And so what we do is we bring it to the foreground so that we can first see it and acknowledge, all right, well, it's probably going to be difficult to operate around money if I feel like I'm greedy for having it, or it's evil, or I'm worried people are going to judge me, or I feel overwhelmed by it, or whatever those programs are. And then we kind of talk about the subconscious mind. We talk about quantum physics. We do get into the manifestation topic. I personally have always had a mixed relationship with that kind of work. Like, I'm like, oh, is it too woo-woo? Is it too this? I'm just curious if that was a challenge for you. Was it helpful for you? Did you like it? I'm curious, like that kind of going into the more energetics of money in a sense.
Yeah, it was great for me. And, I wonder too, how different people with their different places in life might perceive some of those things. I'm already, super into it. I do a lot of meditative work. And so it resonated with me, but bringing back to accountability, that was really big, because maybe some of us go on our spiritual journeys alone, maybe it's because we don't have the people around us, or we don't think people will understand. And I did that for so long, and it got me so far, but it was a big difference with the mindset, with the class, because sometimes you would be talking about things like that I read the Buddha talk about thousands of years ago, and I know it, and I say, oh, that's the way to be, that's the way you should do things, but still not doing it, or not putting it into a proper context of how it's going to help me today in this life. And right. I feel like a lot of the mindset classes that you helped with, you would say things I've heard, but in a different way, or in a more practical way that was more applicable to my situation.
It's the application of it, but also the truth is we all, myself included, we have a built-in forgetter. And right. We think that if we heard something once, we can check it off the box and like we know it. But knowing it and actually living it, embodying it, being it, and applying it to your life are two totally different things. And so what I feel a lot of people do, and this is with spirituality or anything, marketing, money, is they're like, oh, I know I should open a retirement account. So they check the box, but they're not embodying it. They're not applying it. And then they just kind of 10 years later are like, well, shit, I know that, but knowing it and doing it, there's a big gap. And right. I feel like that's what the mindset work really fills in. Like you said, a lot of it wasn't necessarily stuff you hadn't heard before, but you're hearing it on a regular basis in a way that maybe makes it more applicable or easier to practice, or simply just not forget. I feel like that's the purpose of the mindset calls, is to give you dedicated time every week to pour your attention and intention into the relationship, mentally, spiritually, energetically. What does that relationship look like? What do I want it to look like? And sort of design that for yourself. Because I ultimately don't want to tell anyone what to believe. I want you to explore for yourself. What do you believe? And what could you believe that would actually ultimately serve you in getting where you want to go? Does that describe it well?
Absolutely. I mean, I can relate to that, because I went through that, and hopefully other people do. Maybe it's in a different way. But yeah, everyone says that's one of their favorite parts of the program. And a lot of the time, some people say they didn't think that they needed it, or they didn't know what it was.
But then going through the process, they often do say that that was one of the biggest changes, was that perspective shift. Yeah.
Totally. And yeah, just having that conversation, or like you said, sometimes you forget things, or sometimes you just need someone else to hear it. I'll tell myself something, I need to do this, I need to do that. And then you have that friend that you respect that comes in and tells you, you need to do that. And you're like, it just hits different. But the change that the tools have given me, both the financial and practical and the mindset and just how I manage things, has affected the whole rest of my life, because being the business owner on my own, not having a partner, not taking out loans, I mean, the first year or two of this is literally 14, 15 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. And I do care about the quality of my life, and I had a lot less quality of life in general. That may be general, but that's huge to me. And also the way I interacted with people, because I might have issues socializing like some other artist, but it's really important to me to connect to people. And I honestly felt before the course, I was shorter tempered, and I hated that. That wasn't the me I liked. I didn't have extra energy. I was focusing on the business and the plans and the stress and my dreams and my goals and whether or not that was going to work out, and the self-doubt. And now someone comes in and wants to wish me a good day, and I don't even have the time for it. Or someone wants to go for a walk or come and visit me from out of town, and I'm like, well, okay, but I got to work the whole time you're here. So I feel a big difference already in the last year or two with relieving a lot of that stress that I had, that was compounding, that I was going to bed with, that I was waking up with. So then it's bleeding into all my relationships, and I got that much less patience. I've got an agenda of 30 things to do. So when my friend comes in and just says, you want to go for breakfast? It's like, holy shit, like not another thing in my head.
Right.
And now that I don't have that, like, I know things are going to get done because I have a plan, because I have my system. The Waterfall system's going, the automatic payments are going. There's some stress happening, but I've actually got a savings account that I forget about, that if it gets really bad, I'll be okay. And that's really changed the quality of my life. I've been able to focus on my family more. I literally just brought my sister out here a couple weeks ago, the first time in her adult life, and she went through a relapse with usage, and she's got kids, and it's really important to me to be close to or care about my family, but I've been distant from my family my whole adult life, and I haven't had that extra emotional time to work on healing those wounds. And I mean, that literally just happened a couple weeks ago. I brought my sister out here on her first trip to California, and my work was handled. I had shit to do, but things were all taken care of. And I mean, even that, I feel like 2 or 3 years ago, I wouldn't have had the extra bandwidth to emotionally be there for my family.
It's like they say, you can't fill someone else's cup unless you're filling your own cup. And it sounds like your cup is full, and so you can now easily fill someone else's cup without even pulling from your cup.
Yes, thank you. But yeah, that's completely true. I didn't have enough before from my cup to share with anyone else, and now it's full. I feel like it's overflowing, and it's an amazing feeling. I've struggled my whole life. I didn't have assistance from my parents, sad story like everyone's got, but it makes a big difference when you see a world you want to be better, but you can barely even take care of yourself. And it is life-changing for me to be in this position where I can help my family and my community. It kind of goes back to something you were saying earlier, too, with kind of finding your purpose through all these things. I've really found my purpose through art and wanting to help other people, but I wouldn't have been able to do that 5 years ago. Another example is I'm extremely involved with the local community here. I work with the Downtown Business Association and help with city planning on organizing events and trying to bring art and music and represent culture to kind of a smaller conservative town. And I absolutely adore doing that. And same thing, I run 3 businesses right now and tattoo full time. There's no way in hell I'll be able to show up to these meetings, give my advice, do the legwork, contact people to do these events, to bring the community together, to do fundraisers, the things that really fill my heart, fill my soul, fill my cup. It's not even a debate. There's no way I would have been able to do this years ago. I didn't have enough in me. And it feels like everything I've wanted, not to be too dramatic about it, but I feel like this is the life I've wanted, and it's happening. And being appreciative for that, that's another thing I kind of learned through the mindset is, how to be aware, present, and happy, because there's always more to worry about. You
Right.
always want to do better, but it's like to love what you suffer for, like the subtle art of not giving a fuck says. It's very
Yeah.
true. Like Buddhism says, all life is suffering. Life is
Yeah.
hard as hell. When you can just be happy that you've got rent paid, you don't owe anybody anything, and you can help someone down the street or your family, that's and all because of art, because I make art, like that's absolutely everything I've ever wanted out of life.
So my biggest inspiration to create the Artful Dollar was that I feel like the world would be changed if the power was in more of the hands of artists. That's my firm belief. If artists
That's
had
awesome.
more power to make change, then the world would become a better place. And the best way that I knew to give artists and empower artists and give them that power was to teach them how to build a healthy relationship with money. And so you're literally the example of why I do the work that I do. I think that by doing what I do, you're then going to do what you do, and the world's going to become a better place because of it. That's it.
I love that. I feel that, and I feel the same. I haven't had as much to share. You're in a great position, and you're doing really good work. On a smaller level, I love doing that same thing. Sometimes people tell me they were inspired by the art shows I do and the fundraisers, and I've seen them do it in other cities.
That's it.
And I feel the same way. Just those contributions
It's
to
like
the
a
community, to
candle
the
lighting
world.
another candle. You're inspired, you're ignited, and then you're lighting all these other fires, and so it compounds. All because someone told you that they got inspired by the program, and then you did it, and then other people, they don't necessarily need to do my program, but it's the ripple effect that one person, one artist being empowered around money has on their lives and the lives of people around them. That lights me the fuck up. That's what gets me the fuck up in the morning, and doing this day in, day out. That's why I stopped tattooing. People are like, how could you quit tattooing? I love tattooing. But man, you and everyone that I get to work with living their best life, changing the world, that lights me up more than I was lit up by tattooing. And again, I think tattooing is the best job in the world, but that's what lights me up. So, well, let's get into you've talked about a lot of these sort of, results and things that you've got out of it, but brass tacks, you were barely able to save $1,000. I think at the time, you got out of the course, you probably got your, business account into like 20 grand, and other savings accounts. If you were to describe some of your life, your businesses, and maybe your marketing or savings, I'm just curious, you don't have to give me all the details, but I'm just curious, like, what does that look like now? Some of the tangible results.
Good question. And right now is a funny time because I'm still learning and I'm still growing, and I've got so much all over the place right now because I just made a big purchase on a shop that I expect to have a return and everything. It came with the profit already, so that's good. But I mean, the biggest thing that I could say that was tangible was what happened last year was I had the opportunity to buy a shop that I used to work at.
Hey, real quick, for anyone that wants to learn to put the Waterfall money system in place for yourself, I actually just did a whole YouTube video on that, which you can check the link in the captions to get to that video. But I show you the whole thing. I break it down from soup to nuts. What does it look like? How would you set it up? And if that's something that you're looking to do to help you save more money than you've ever saved in your entire life, to really take control of your finances and ultimately have a system that does it for you so that you just can't fuck it up that bad, go check out that video and listen to the end of this episode just to really hear the full impact that taking control of your finances can have on your life and on the lives of everyone around you. So back to the episode.
But I mean, the biggest thing that I could say that was tangible was what happened last year was I had the opportunity to buy a shop that I used to work at that was highly reputable, very successful. When me and my friends worked there, we saw it making a lot of money. It's a great location, got a great reputation. And I had the opportunity to buy that last year when I really, wasn't expecting to, but I knew I eventually wanted to grow. And I knew I had to take that opportunity because it was a great deal on a great place that was already established. And I had the money for it. They wanted $25,000 for the whole shop, everything in it, the business. There's no way, I would have been able to do that a few years ago. It just would have been completely off the table. And they'd seen me being successful with my shops. They see me doing these events.
So were they also looking for someone to buy it who they knew they could feel confident was going to help it thrive?
Exactly, because the owner also wanted to see their dream kind of continue and not just fall. And so they wanted to hand it over to someone who was going to be competent. And I was able to make that deal without taking out any loans. I didn't take a single loan. I didn't go into debt at all.
Wow.
I was able to purchase the place, and I've been doing renovations on it. It is making a return. It's a few $1,000s profit with what everyone's paying.
I mean, that sounds like a great deal that you got. And, I think just in terms of the tangible results, like that's massive. And, you've got multiple shops. Anything exciting, any trips or any other things that are kind of going on? I'm just curious, like what you're using the Waterfall system to do and how are you using it to live your life?
Hey, I can talk about that forever. I am incredibly in love with life. I'm super passionate about getting the most that I can out of it at all times. And that's honestly been really hard running the businesses the first few years. And now that it is more manageable, I can have time off, I can go away. Of course, I love conventions. I love going to the conventions and talking to my fellow artists and still learning, still growing. That's extremely important. Being able to do the events I do, because sometimes I got to put a little money in before the events happen. And to be able to support, we've done fundraisers for domestic women's shelters, pet shelters, victims of some of the wildfires, and having art and music and people coming together and being able to promote it without having to say, let me make sure I have enough money beforehand. Anything I do, I mean, right now, without sounding cocky, I know I've got a backup plan, I've got a safety net, and that makes a huge difference if I do want to take a week off. I travel all the time. I'm an avid cyclist. I was able to take some time off in October to go on a 200-mile bike ride from Lake Tahoe to Pyramid Lake. Wild camping trip, bicycling in the wilderness. And
could you have taken that trip with $1,000 in the bank?
Don't. Hell no. And I'm pretty sure on that trip, I was getting the calls too. Printer's broken. We need something, and send the money, had the money. I'll worry about it when I get back.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way I could have, taken that trip. That was actually the first month that I took over the new business that I just bought too. And I needed a break. I'm like, I've been grinding. I've made this deal go through, but I need my personal time too. And couldn't have done that with just $1,000. The trip with my sister, I actually went home over the holidays when I heard my sister relapse, and it was kind of an emergency. And same thing, the end of December, that's just the worst time for the tattoo industry, right? The end of the slow season, you're trying to make money for January. And if I can actually retract, here's a good little tale for you, because the first year I opened my shop, I was so overworking, and I was doing so much for my shop and the other artists, and I was giving them a good deal, and I was working my ass off and investing. I didn't have a lot of money, and then that slow season came, and then a few people weren't working, and someone didn't show up for a month, and I was not able to go home and see my family who needed me. They have a lot of stress and issues over there, and I was in a full breakdown point. I was so depressed, I just had to kind of coast through it knowing that I was going to be depressed. Not only could I not go home to see my family, I had to work. I had to tattoo in the time that I was planning to take off, because just to make that rent, that's the difference it was. We're talking December 20th, $2,000, behind on rent for everything. And I have to be the one to show up and tattoo to float the shop so these other people can work here. I was just beside myself, depressed. And
That
when I
was
get that
that
sad,
was 2 years
I
ago.
know this was 2021.
Okay, so like
Yeah, the
four
end of
years ago.
21
Yeah,
going into 22. So about a year and a half before the Artful Dollar course.
yeah. If you hadn't gone through the Artful Dollar program, if you hadn't set up the waterfall system, if you had stuck with whatever mindset you had around money, what do you think the past couple years or the past 2 years would have looked like?
I'll be honest with you. I would have lost my mind or quit the shops. That's 100% fact. I don't think I would have been able to stay on the course that I was, almost because of things like that. Because if that shit had happened 2 or 3 more times, what's the point? You know, I would have thrown it all in the air and just gone back to being a tattooer, which isn't what I wanted, because I still wanted more. I wanted to do more with myself. Now, 2 years later or so, 3 years later after that, it was a similar situation. And I was able to go home. I had savings. I had credit. I had a credit card I didn't even know about that had me like $500 for a plane ticket. So it was
Oh, nice.
amazing. You know, the difference between I can't go home, I don't have enough money to help my family, I have to work extra to float this shop. And then 2 or 3 years later, to having extra money that I didn't even know about, being able to go spend my family time knowing that the bills were paid back here. That's everything. I don't know how to put that into words properly. But
No, that's a night and day difference. It literally is a night and day difference. You lived
it
through
is.
it, and it was a hellhole, and then you lived through a similar situation, and due to having your financial education, a relationship with money, systems to back you up, you were able to help your sister and maintain your peace of mind
And keep my shops going.
and keep your shops going and doing fundraisers, raising money for good causes. I mean,
Yep.
this is a pretty wild transformation is what it looks like.
It is. I
Yeah.
needed it. Like I said, I want the most out of life. And the older I get, the more I realize I don't always have the tools. You know, you got to reach out, you got to learn, you got to ask for help, you got to try different stuff, you got to educate yourself. And it's a good thing that there is more of that going on in the tattoo world.
If anyone's listening to this and they're like, man, this sounds good, but I don't know, and you know, what would you say to someone that's just like considering, they're like, maybe they're in a similar spot, they've been making money for 5-10 years, but they don't really have much to show for it, to save for it? What would you say to that person?
Kind of comes down to motivation so much. You know, if you really want something out of life, or you just say you want it, I think if you're passionate and you're truthful and you want to do things, you need to take the steps rather than just talking about it forever. Those people, I see them so much. I've had those apprentices that I've let go because I hear that mindset. I need to do that, I just can't. I mean, you got to know what you want out of life too. And I think that's important. What motivates you, what you want, and how to get it. You know, I wanted to create art and make the world a better place. And I don't know, that was pretty big. What was I doing? Doing tattoos? That wasn't as much. And when I was able to elevate and become a business owner and have more reach and have more impact, that helped me reach my goals. So I would just say, if people are serious, if you're actually serious about wanting to make your life better, that this is absolutely a tool that's going to help. If you are a tattooer, if you want to be better with your money, if you just want to bullshit and stay in the same place, then it's not for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was helpful, but
No, that's honest, that's real. So, if anyone were to reach out to you, that's essentially what you would tell them.
yeah, I would say it's incredibly worth it if you're gonna put in the work. You can't just sign up, show up, and expect it all to happen. It's like people ordering the $1,200 tattoo machine, and then the skills don't come with it.
Right.
Like,
I always tell people it's not a
too.
magic pill. I don't have any
Right.
magic pills. I don't have any get rich quick schemes. I don't have anything like that to offer. All I have
Right.
to offer is a path. And if you do it, and if you just follow the path, even if you don't see how it's going to work, it just has this sort of miraculous way of producing extraordinary results. It's almost just a natural side effect. If you set up these accounts, if you set up these transfers, if you start questioning your current relationship with money and start putting into practice these things, it would be very hard to not have a pretty massive transformation around money. That's what I tried to create. Yeah, man. I mean, I'll just in closing just say, like, you're an inspiration. you're just living your truest, authentic life. You're having fun doing it. You put some tools into practice. It produced these great results. I always say, whatever results you're getting are a direct result of whatever systems you have in place. So if you want to change the results, you have to change the system. You can't keep using the old system and expect to change your results. You're a clear testament of that. And I hope other tattooers, whether they reach out to me or not, whether they do this program or not, just to know that if you've been working for years, you've only ever had $1,000 to your name, there is hope. You don't have to keep doing it that way. You can start to organize your finances, put some structures in place, and really start to, practice some new belief systems around money. It's possible. And you're an example. It's true. It's proof. There's no doubt. It absolutely is possible.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well said. I wish I had said so many of the things you said, but I know this is your department and everything, but you sum it up really well.
As long as I'm not saying anything that is untrue or is invalid, as long as you can relate to it. Yeah.
I can relate to it. You're reflecting my thoughts very well. So it's 100% true. And that was a good thing you were kind of touching on too, that I kind of pulled out of that Atomic Habits book, that you suggested. I know you talk about some of those teachings. And that was another huge change for me. I think as artists, we're used to being so independent. You have to be a little egotistical to want to express your art and everything. And I think a side effect of that can be wanting to do everything yourself and, knowing I can do this. I can figure it out. That's always how I was. I worked on meditation. I can change my mind. I can work on my subconscious. But a huge thing I learned is sometimes you just can't, or it's too hard. And at that point, learning the habits, learning the systems is a totally different thing. You can't just mentally will yourself into everything.
The
Sometimes you need to admit that you're kind of dumb and you need help. Habits and systems take the thought out of a lot of that. So you're not just relying on your own intelligence. Learn how other people do it.
That I'm dumb and that I don't know something. That's my favorite thing. Is just pretend
huge.
I use crayons and explain it to me, But the truth is that no one accomplishes big goals in life, financial goals in life. No one just figures it out on their own and does it. It doesn't happen.
Yes.
You can go to anyone who's financially successful and say, hey, how did you figure out how to do this all on your own? And they're like, I didn't. I learned from other people. That was my experience. That's your experience. And I think that's probably one of the number one things that are keeping people stuck is they think that they can just figure it out on their own and they're jogging around inside of the petri dish of their own mind trying to find a solution. It just doesn't exist there.
I agree. I'm so glad I changed my mindset and admitted that I was dumb and I need help.
It's freeing. It is. It's liberating,
It is. And it's great because people do help. And it's like when you change that money energy and more money comes into you, when you want to learn and you're pushing yourself, people do help you and give you, tools. And that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Well, I know you got to go. I have to go in a minute, but I just wanted to thank you for being living proof, living the life, following the path, following your dreams. And then a year and a half after going through that journey, coming on here and sharing your experience. Yeah, man, I can't wait to talk to you a year from now and just hear what you're up to then. Because
I'll catch you at a convention before then, I hope. I gotta catch you around sometime.
Yeah,
I've been getting out more. But yeah, it's been great. And you know what else? To sum it up, I now own the only two shops that I've worked at since moving to this area of California. They're both in two amazing locations in two beautiful cities of Auburn and Sacramento, California. And just before this interview, I got my dream home on 35 acres with horses. I'm 39 years old. I would have never imagined this at this point for where I was at 30, where I was at 33. This is absolutely insane, and I'm just going to keep pushing it. Now I'm getting involved with the community. I'm trying to help out the whole city, and this is the life I always wanted, even when it's hard, even when it's a lot of work.
I'm jealous, man.
I'm right where I want to be.
35 acres with horses. I want to be out in nature. I'm in New York City, so You know, I could use, so I'm going to have to come out and visit. That's what's going to have to
Yeah,
happen.
absolutely. You can. We're close to the city, but live in the foothill mountains. It's gorgeous. We can talk about a retreat here too or something.
Cool.
It's got a lot of space.
Oh, all right. All right. Now you got my gears
Yeah.
spinning. All right. I'm excited. We'll make it happen. Let's fucking do it.
Yeah, let's
Man.
keep in
do
touch,
it.
Ryan. You've been a big part of my progress, and I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, Nick. All right, if you found this episode helpful, one of the best ways for you to help other artists is to share this episode. Leave a review and subscribe. It helps other people find my channel, and you never know what a difference it might make for someone else. Plus, I will forever be grateful for your support, so I just want to say thank you and have a great rest of your day.